Hi, this is Dr. Deidra Sorrell, owner of Synergy Wellness Therapeutic Services in Waldorf, Maryland, and welcome to another episode of The Secrets of Therapy, what therapists want you to know to maximize your progress in therapy. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about ghosting. Yeah, ghosting occurs in the therapeutic relationship. And let me tell you, it's not a good thing. So let me ask you, have you ghosted your therapist? Be honest. I'm not going to beat you up for that. It's something that happens. Just like in friendships and other relationships, the therapeutic relationship is not immune to ghosting. I have heard of therapists that ghost their clients, and that's another discussion. But I want to focus on clients who ghost their therapist. So if you've ghosted your therapist, um, no, you're not a terrible person. But let's talk about why. Why did you ghost your therapist? And that's something for you to think about. Is it because it was a bad match? Did you realize that you really didn't have the connection with that person? For example, did you realize that the therapist wasn't really culturally competent and you felt a bit offended by some of the things that they said or some of the things that they didn't say? That's something to think about. You have to think about why you suddenly got to a point where you stopped communicating with the therapist. And that could be that you just canceled and you never reached out again, or you didn't show for a session and the therapist reached out to you and you didn't respond. That's definitely ghosting. So it's really worth some thought, because the bottom line is the therapist is going to get another client and the therapist is going to move on, right? But what about you? What are you going to do? And in one of my earlier videos, I talked about therapist shopping. And when you kind of jump from therapist to therapist, you really don't make the progress that you need to make. So if you ghosted your therapist, it's really time to really reflect and think about what that's about. Could it be that you are lacking progress in therapy? And that's something to think about as well, because sometimes you may not think that you're making progress, but the therapist might think so. And when you ask your therapist, well, do you think I'm making progress? They may give you a long list of all the things that you've been doing differently, and you might have an aha moment where you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about that. So if you think that you haven't made progress, it's really beneficial to you to re-engage with that therapist and tell that therapist, I really felt like I wasn't making, growth with you. And that's why I was sort of out of touch for a while. But I really would like to see and find out how you think, what you think about that. And an honest therapist will tell you the truth. I've had clients where I've said, I really don't think we're making progress, and I think we need to change gears. We need to think of some other goals, or we need to move in a different direction. An honest therapist will be real with you about that, but you have to be real with the therapist as well. And the last thing that I need you to do is really think about how you feel about ghosting your therapist. If you feel okay about it, then think about it some more, because you went to therapy for a reason. And if you ghosted your therapist and you're not in therapy, then you have some wounds that are not quite healed. If you want to look for another therapist, I think that you should. But I do think that in therapy, you're trying to improve yourself and improve how you do things. So it's really imperative that you fix this. It's really imperative that you not leave loose ends. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is to reach out to your therapist. You can send a letter, an email, a text, phone call, slide dial, whatever you have to do. But I think it's important that you tell the therapist that you want to move in another direction, because your therapist 9 times out of 10 is thinking about you and wondering what's happening, what's going on, are you doing okay, did something happen, did something bad happen, they don't know what's happening, and most therapists actually really care. So reach out to your therapist and let them know that you want to move into another direction, and that you're going to be looking for another therapist. And your therapist is not going to get upset and call you and say, why are you getting somebody else? They're not going to do that. They're going to be happy that you were honest, and they're going to wish you well. Another thing that you can do is reach out to your therapist and have a talk with them. Try to re-engage with them. If you really feel that this is someone that you had a connection with, re-engage with your therapist. If there is a no-show fee, please pay that. And then tell the therapist what happened. Tell them, I really didn't feel that I was making progress. I want to talk about that with you. What other reasons you may have. I fell on financial hard times. I got busy. I forgot. Whatever it is, re-engage with your therapist. Let them know what happened. Please don't make excuses. Just be honest. Because in therapy, this is a time for you to be real and to really process what's going on with you. And I tell you, I can guarantee you that you're going to grow through this process. Is it comfortable? No, it's not comfortable. Is it scary? Yes. It's a very vulnerable place to be in when you've ghosted your therapist and you're re-engaging. But I encourage you to do it. I encourage you to really tie up all those loose ends so that you can make the personal progress that you need to make to move on. So these are just some things to think about. Please tell me what you think about this in the comments section. Let's start the discussion. And thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Secrets of Therapy. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.